I have a confession to make. I really like Dark Souls 2. Regarded by many as the weakest link within the Souls trilogy, DS2 may struggle from time to time with its game and world design choices, but if you can look past some of the differences that set it apart from the other two games, there's a lot to enjoy and immerse yourself in. The game has its issues, but for someone like me who enjoys the lore and story and secrets of digital worlds, there are certain elements of DS2 that have captivated me from my very first playthrough, and I've done several over the past few years. This is not a defense or review of Dark Souls 2, but with all the time I've spent exploring the kingdom of Drangleic, I did want to hone in on one specific aspect of this overlooked sequel, the human aspect. In a franchise known for its punishing monsters, complex fantasy worlds, and primordial forces like fire and dark and souls, this game offers an additional, deeper window into the mortal perspective through its landscapes and story that not too many players are aware of. Today, let's take a look at why Dark Souls 2 is, in my opinion, the most human of the Souls games. A world less about gods and dragons, and more about the mortal tragedy built atop this unchanging cycle. As always, thank you for the fun comments and support, and with all that being said, let's get right into it. Starting off, the choice of setting for Dark Souls 2 is quite different in terms of its layout and history compared to the other two games. In the first game, the Kingdom of Lordran is the failing epicenter of the Age of Fire, an interconnected web of tunnels, buildings, and courtyards surrounding the capital of Anor Londo. DS3 features the time-warped land of Lothric, where castles, catacombs, and city streets merge together across space and time to create an apocalyptic, worn-down amalgamation. In contrast, the lands of Drangleic from Dark Souls 2 feel much more varied, open, and expansive on average, still the remnants of a kingdom long past its prime, but with a very different feel and sense of scale. The founding of these kingdoms is also crucial in understanding the special role DS2 plays here. Anor Londo and the surrounding parts of Lordran were established and protected by the gods and demigods of the world, beings blessed with powerful souls who stood against the cataclysmic might of ancient dragons. Lothric, in all its many pieces, is also overseen by corrupt demigods wielding vengeful fire and other magic, several of whom may be descendants of the original pantheon from DS1. These elements bring up ideas of the divine, of immortality, with the race of gods even towering over ordinary humans most of the time, giving us a sense of their separation from the mortal experience. However, this is not the story we see in Dark Souls 2. The Kingdom of Drangleic was founded by Vendrick, a human, along with his scholarly brother Aldia, and the humans of the world who joined him or were conquered by him as his influence grew. Vendrick also conquered the land of giants, using their power to create monumental constructions for his kingdom, like Drangleic Castle, and perhaps the Cardinal Fortress and others as well. During his prime, it is said that Vendrick also learned of the 4 Lord Souls of legend, and collected them to further Aldia's research and his own power, turning him into something more akin to a demigod or a lord of old. Eventually, the Age of Fire began to dwindle once more, the Undead Curse began to spread throughout Drangleic, and Vendrick went into hiding to stave off the corruption of the dark, but was eventually cursed himself, leading to the long and painful decline of everything he had built. These story points are expanded more throughout the game, but I hope you see my general idea. We see in this tale not the gods taking an active role in shaping the world, but humans establishing a realm of their own and seizing ancient power, sometimes to their detriment. We hear mentions of gods and demigods, and some of the story brushes up against elements from the first game, of course, but the core history of this game is inherently tied to humans and their flaws. It's a great lesson on pride and ambition, and I think it's a really cool opportunity to experience the world of Dark Souls during an era of human society and influence. Or at least the end of one. We hear about scattered human kingdoms in all 3 games, and many of the NPCs we meet hail from them, but Drangleic is the only main kingdom we explore that was once founded and dominated by humankind, not the divine. We see the farmhouses and battlements, the crypts and farmlands that once thrived as a part of a functional kingdom, now overrun with hollows and more dangerous beings. But Drangleic and its king are not the only ones affected by the Undead Curse, and at the beginning of Dark Souls 2, our character is one such victim, traveling here from a land far off to hopefully break the curse once and for all. Hollowing is a process well known to players of any Dark Souls game. Humankind is afflicted by the Undead Curse, and as the fire of the world fades, it becomes more and more likely that one can lose themselves to apathy and discouragement, causing them to hollow and turn into a mindless undead that cannot remember their past. It's a fate worse than death in this universe, and only by seeking out life-sustaining souls, or finding one's motivation in life, can one even have a chance of staving off the darkness. This withering away of one's humanity is what has brought you, the player, to Drangleic, and many others as well. Similar to the pilgrimages undertaken by mortals to Lordran and Lothric in the other games, there seems to be a common reason why many of the adventurers are here, lifting the Undead Curse. The ancient firekeepers at the start of the game have this to say during the cryptic prologue sequence. "Perhaps you've seen it, maybe in a dream, a murky, forgotten land, a place where souls may mend your ailing mind. Long ago, in a walled-off land far to the north, a great king built a great kingdom. I believe they called it Drangleic. Perhaps you're familiar. No, how could you be? But one day, you will stand before its decrepit gate without really knowing why, time after time, for that is your fate, the fate of the cursed." So this time, in this cycle of the world, the humans, turning into the undead and eventually hollows, are really emphasized as suffering from a loss of memory, which we see time and time again throughout the game. NPCs forget why they're in a particular area, or even here in Drangleic at all, losing themselves and abandoning their original goal of finding a cure. It truly is tragic, especially with the context that the journey is more personal here than in either of the other games. In Dark Souls 1 and 3, strings are being pulled in the background by powerful forces to try and further the goals of either fire or dark, like the manufactured prophecy of the chosen undead, or the last chance resurrection by fire of the Ashen One. These two protagonists are marching along, fighting bosses, and collecting souls to decide the balance of the world, and while the bearer of the curse in DS2 does get involved with some of these world-shaping decisions by the end of the game, they ventured here for a much more individual purpose, reclaiming the memories of their former self. We see this in the prologue cutscene, figures of a mother, a spouse, maybe a child, melting into a gray expanse, the blank emptiness of a hollow. By working with the Emerald Herald, who serves as the main Firekeeper character throughout the game, the player will reclaim the 4 old souls lost by Vendrick, then travel to Drangleic Castle and beyond to face the remnants of his lost kingdom and the Dark Queen who now rules in his absence. After consolidating the power of the world and also interacting with the intense, fire-bound presence of Aldia, the brother of Vendrick, the player can unlock the most complete ending scenario, or as complete as can be expected from a Souls game. In Dark Souls 1, players have the option of either linking the First Flame and prolonging the era of fire, or abandoning the flame and becoming the Lord of Dark. Dark Souls 3 offers a similar choice with a few secret endings as well, but the second game is unique in how it redefines the dichotomy presented in the first. At the climax of the story, players can choose the option of proceed to throne and seal themselves inside the Throne of Want, representing the continuation of the fire and dark cycle. We don't know which decision our hero makes, which is part of the point. We're still accepting the cycles of fire and dark, prosperity followed by the Undead Curse as the way of the world. The other decision, only unlocked by completing Aldia's storyline, is simply called Leave the Throne, with the hero refusing to perpetuate the two-sided cycle and searching for a more permanent end to the flawed system, just as Aldia himself once did. This ending feels inherently tied to humanity and the hero's original mission of breaking the curse for all humans, not just temporarily by relighting the primal fire, but forever. Dark Souls 3 does happen in the future, so we know that in the canon timeline, there is no permanent solution found, but if we look at DS2 as its own thing, it's an interesting and poetic ending, and the one that I believe fits with the themes presented throughout the game if you've been paying attention. You set out to lift the curse and regain your lost memories, get caught up in all this talk of fire and souls and dark, but in the end, you realize that breaking the infinite cycle, or trying to, is the best and only bet for your future and the future of all humans suffering from the Undead Curse. There are a few final details I want to end on today. Compared to the magical humanity or ember items used to reverse the effects of hollowing in the other two games, Dark Souls 2 introduced items called human effigies, small figurines that can help you hang on to a bit of yourself, a bit of your memory, as you become lost in this forsaken kingdom. Peer closely at an effigy, and one begins to perceive a human form, but whose form it takes depends on the person looking. Possibly still magical, but more physical and more personal, perfectly in line with the pattern we've been seeing regarding humans and their journey in Drangleic. Another point that I've heard a lot in reviews of Dark Souls 2 is the prevalence of humanoid enemies in the game. Once again, I think this fits, as Drangleic was once occupied by humans and humanoid constructs, now hollow or mindlessly following their original orders. We also see this trend with the 3 expansions released for the game, each focusing on a sister kingdom of Drangleic and how they fell to ruin, leaving behind fallen labyrinths and forgotten crowns guarded by knights and soldiers. Not to say this wasn't at the cost of enemy diversity, but this approach does give you an appreciation for the humanoid v humanoid style of combat that you don't see quite as much in the other 2 games. Last but not least, who could forget Majula? One of the best hub areas in any Souls game. A small hamlet far removed from everything else happening in the world. Not a ruin on the doorstep of divine walls and castles, but a small set of houses set against the backdrop of the sea. Still in decline, still in disrepair, but also a site of respite and recovery, and of course, a cozy bonfire.
This is Majula. It is a kind of settlement, a place where life is almost normal. And in Drangleic these days, there are very few places like that.
As you sort through all the tragedies and sad stories that litter this land, as is the standard for a Souls game, there is still hope and light, and an experience to be found that captures the human condition. Venturing through Drangleic, if you have conversations with the others you meet on your adventure, you can invite them back to Majula, and the town can actually start to feel more lively, with merchants, magicians, a blacksmith, and others taking up residence here. Maybe not a permanent solution to the troubles facing these people, but it sure beats going through the Undead Curse alone, and it seems some of the others appreciate the work you've been doing too.
Quite a hive of activity we are these days. I'd forgotten how much comfort a little companionship can bring. Once I'd lost everything, but now I am grateful for what you have taught me.
I'll end on that today, and I hope I've conveyed to you all why I think Dark Souls 2, while imperfect, is the most human Souls game, a more personal journey through a world that continues to challenge and inspire me as I discover new things on every playthrough. Thank you all so much for watching, and a special thank you to my channel members who provide bonus support for these videos. Until next time, may the Force be with you, and remember, don't you dare go hollow.